So Jason, how does it feel? I don't know if you know this or not yet, that to be Viza Property Management's first third-party client.
First third-party client.
Yeah, when we started.
Can you
Did you know that?
no, can you elaborate on this a little bit?
You were our first client. Like that was not properties that we owned and managed for ourselves.
I did not know that.
I mean,
You presented yourself to me, I felt like you were this huge company.
yeah. Well, to be fair, we had a lot of units under management at the time still between, uh, Crosdick and myself, but we hadn't done for any like true, like people that we've never met before, you know?
It's interesting.
So it was a learning curve. I think,
Really?
yeah, I just finished, I got my property management agreement done like a week before I met you. Chris put it together for me and he's like, all right, you're all set. Good luck.
Interesting. I would've I mean, if you told me that ahead of time, I don't know,
I might have said no. Yeah.
I might have said no. But no, I was in a situation there with that property where
Mhm.
I was thinking about selling it. So I think I made the right decision, I
Mhm.
definitely but, it needed updating, so that was what concerned me a little bit. Initially in my mind, I was like, I don't it was from 1994, the inside of it, so I thought to myself, "How much is this really gonna cost to update it?" Because I want it to look nice, and in my mind, I had a you guys came in at a really good price.
Mhm.
I was happy with the price
Yeah.
and you actually even talked me down on a few things. I think initially, I was talking about redoing the entire kitchen, and you were like, "I think we can keep the cabinets, but, we'll replace the countertop," and, you talked me out of an ice maker with a refrigerator
Oh
too.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, so it worked out well. We have a good tenant in there.
Yeah, and there's one thing, like, if you're gonna sell the property, then yeah, it might have made sense to do the whole kitchen, because you're gonna get somebody who's gonna be living in there themselves, but you weren't gonna I didn't think you were gonna get much of a premium on the rent for doing that, so, it was good, and I was, really happy to see that you were a landlord who was willing to put money into their properties because, I mean, too many times, some of the people that we work with, they don't wanna put anything in, not even regular repairs and maintenance, and I say to these people, or I try to, not only is it not right for some of the tenants who are living there, but this is your asset that you spent significant amount of money to purchase and own, and this is going to become your problem one day, whether while the tenant's there or not.
I agree, and you're sacrificing not getting top rent completely, you're just not gonna have a desirable unit,
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's also that's kind the kind of product that you put out there. That's going to be the kind of tenant that you attract, right? The more competitive you are with the market as to what you're offering and for what rent price you're offering, the better selection of tenants you're going to have as far as credit score, people who could easily qualify as far as income and all the other things you look for when you're screening a tenant. So I try to get that across too, and I'm just happy that you were able to see through that as well, and make that investment upfront and into we've had the same tenant there since we leased it, what, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been good. But why don't you just tell everybody really quick how you got into, real estate investing. I know you had a background of doing a few different things, just so people know, how we, how you came across even needing a property manager and how we met and what we've done since then.
I guess I got into this, by accident maybe in a
Mhm.
way. When I was in college, I would see a lot of houses around campus that were like they looked like 2 families, and I always kinda thought to myself, and maybe it'd be kinda cool to, like, live in one half and rent the other." But I put that in the back burner, and then when my wife, girlfriend at the time, fiancé, I think, we were looking
Mhm.
for a house because we were getting married, and we were just, like, looking for us, it was like, I work here, she works here, let's try to find a property here."
Mhm.
So we had a real estate agent, and, actually going back a little further, my I think it was probably my father that kinda said something to me one day. He goes, "Why don't you buy, like, a multifamily and, like, rent out half
Mhm.
or something?" And I thought, "That's not a bad idea," So, a real estate agent presented me with, like, a pocket deal, or it was a deal in the office that wasn't listed yet, and, we looked at it. It was actually pretty much brand new, like, they were finishing it. They're like, you could pick out, like, the paint and the carpet and everything. So we went forward with that, we bought it, and, for many years, we lived there for about 10 years. We were probably paying half of, our, you know, the mortgage minus the rent, probably half of what all our friends were paying.
Mhm.
I was kinda, like, surprised how much people were paying. Um, it was an up and down, we lived on the first floor, we did hear stuff upstairs, but I think for 10 years, it was actually really good. It kind of introduced me to, like, dealing with, like, leases and different tenants and
Mhm.
people coming and going. And, so after about 10 years, then we decided we just were out of room. It was roomy. We had probably about 2,000 square feet, but we decided we wanted to, with a child, to move to a bigger house.
Mhm.
So I kept it, and then so I had my primary residence and this property. And then I decided I think I'm ready for another rental property. So I
Mhm.
think that's like the biggest, like, step up people are going to take,
Yeah.
let getting the second one or the third one or the fourth one, like, how am I going to do this? So
Mhm.
I kind of decided I'm going to go for a second rental property,
Mhm.
and I bought it. And then within, like, 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks, my real estate agent said, "Hey, 2 houses down, another another house is for sale, another property, another two family." And I thought she was crazy. I was like,
Mhm.
what do you mean? I just bought this house here. Another one?" She's like, "They're really desperate to sell it." So I made it happen. And then I began to realize that, yeah, I began to see, like, the value in, like, the appreciation. And, with real estate, I use an acronym, CAT, CAAT, cash flow, appreciation, amortization, and tax write-offs, okay?
Mhm.
So I always think about that, it's not a short-term thing, you're not gonna get rich overnight, but over time, you look at all the big real estate investors out there, I mean, Donald Trump is one, Sam Zell, all these guys out there that have done this over time. They've built empires, right? But it takes time.
Mhm.
So after, I guess I had a couple, um, I wasn't really finding anything in New Jersey. So I stumbled upon this website, and it had, like, thousands of rental properties, like, all over the country. All right. So I was like, all right, this is very interesting. Because I like to use, like, the 1% rule,
Mhm.
which is, if a property is, if they're asking $500,000 for it, the rent should be about 1% of that. And it might work. That's like a filter I use.
Mhm.
I wasn't finding it in New Jersey at that time. The market is very competitive. It was very competitive then. It still is. But I, wound up getting connected to, an advisor that pointed me in the direction of, Indiana, and Indianapolis, and I was like, "Okay, I'll take a look at it." Um, so I looked at it, and, they said, "Look, they're looking to sell that the owners are living in it. They're looking to move soon, but they would rent it back from you."
Mhm.
And I said, "Okay." So I said, I'm gonna take that leap right now. I'm gonna buy a house. I'm not driving out there to even look at it. I'm going on emails and a home inspection and everything. And, it worked out fine. I still have that property to this day.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably almost doubled in value in the last 5 years.
But what made you comfortable taking that jump? Because, I mean, out of state it's one thing for people to buy even investment property in their own backyard. So how did you feel comfortable buying something multiple states away, not having even met any of the people there, knowing any vendors, being able to see the tenants yourself? Like,
Right.
how'd you grasp that?
I had a I interviewed a couple of property management companies, and
Mhm.
I felt very comfortable with the one that was gonna take this on.
Mhm.
They manage a lot of properties out there. They have a big team. So they still manage that property and a handful of other ones out there.
Mhm.
So I took the leap. I said, "What's the worst could happen, I guess,"
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it could burn down.
yeah, it could be,
Yeah,
anything, but
or yeah, I mean,
there could be no property there. I mean, it's just like,
I have squatters, yeah, and
yeah, I just can't even imagine it. I mean, I applaud you for doing it because it's like real estate and property management is all I do. It's like my main focus, and I've still never even seriously considered going outside of New Jersey yet. Just because the laws are a little bit different. I like working on I'm licensed in New Jersey.
mhm,
Running a brokerage and all of that. But I applaud you because there's a lot of people who are talking about it, but never pull the trigger and just spend endless amounts of time doing analysis on it and considering it. So, I mean, it's good to see, your success story out of it, but it wasn't just, Indianapolis, right? It was a few other states
yeah.
here?
I'm also in Alabama,
Yeah.
and, yeah, you're right. Every state is different. Um, I don't know if I would. I'm not looking to buy any further in Alabama, and I don't think if I can go back in time, I probably wouldn't have either.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, these things are different out
Mhm.
there. Turnover, like tenant vacancies and so forth, and
Mhm.
but I'm pretty happy out in Indiana, and I probably would consider other states too.
Mhm,
You wanna look at, landlord-friendly states for sure.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna be able to evict people quickly if you're you know, you don't want this to drag on, and, it's really I guess I kinda think of this like the whole system is like, if back in, like, in school, you ever had those gears on the wall that you can spin, and you see all the gears moving at the same time? So I think if you entered the right team, and I'm probably gonna forget someone here, but, like, real estate agent, attorney, title company, property manager,
Mhm,
home inspector, lender, okay, all these people that are working for you, if they're all able to, work efficiently and quickly, they're gonna make, my job easier as
mhm.
an investor. If you have a real estate agent that just doesn't get back to you or, an attorney that takes, like, a week to get back to you and everything.
Kills deals.
Yeah, and time is money, right?
Mhm.
You wanna move forward.
Yeah.
To me, that's the most important thing.
Mhm,
Even if you pay premium a little bit, but, time is money. You wanna keep moving forward.
mhm. 1000%. That's why we like working with so many of the same like you said, the attorney, we have the same Chris, you've met Chris. He's on retainer. We use him for all of our landlord-tenant stuff, all the contracts, all the general business law that things that we come across. Worldwide land transfer,
Mhm,
title. I mean, they're awesome. I mean, there's a lot of title companies out there, always, all going for the same business, but working with Jeff and Juan over there has been fantastic. You have even property insurance. There's a lot of people out there, it's just timing, being able to quickly look at a property and being able to call Tom over at High Street Insurance Agency and just say, what am I looking at? Because it's not, you can't just apply a dollar per unit to insurance as much as you'd like to. It's all dependent upon the type of the property, the age, location, how close is it to a high crime neighborhood, how close is it to a coast, right? All these things that, we don't have access to as much as we'd like to, and you got to have someone readily available to make those, answer that
mhm.
for you. Because if not, it's really difficult to know how much you could pay for a property when you have very limited information, you know? So I agree, having the right team in place is, most important. Even the last property that we just did in Bhutan, that the insurance on a deal like that could really make or break
Mhm.
what it is. So him being able to run out a quote before we even had a contract on the property validated, some of the assumptions going into it. Because there's very, very little information available at the time, when we were looking at it. Um, so and even from the, attorney standpoint, it's really nice being able to work with the same guy because, now at this point, Chris knows exactly what I'm looking for in all the purchases, right?
Mhm.
The biggest thing is getting the tenant estoppels just to verify all the lease terms that are in place, because if not, if the rents are where they're supposed to be, where they're represented, or if they're not paying certain utilities that you thought they were gonna be paying for, or what's also important is when the last rent increase took place, because even if they're not on a lease,
Mm.
if a rent increase took place within the last 12 months, you can't increase it again until that 12-month expires. And that could really impact the the business deal that you have at play, right? You're typically looking to refinance whenever possible inside of 12 months, because we buy these properties oftentimes with hard money, high interest rate loans, and we want to take that off the table as soon as possible. So it's been really good working with the same guys. But so far, how's it been working with Visa Property Management? Compare, because especially you've had experience working with how many other managers at this point?
Yeah, probably had 5 different property managers maybe over the years now.
And where are they lacking?
I would say lacking customer service and communication.
Hmm.
Okay. To me, look, I understand. I'm not expecting an email to be responded to in an hour. Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe it should if it's an emergency, but some of them I've dealt with, days can go by.
Hmm.
A week can go by. And I hate to be that guy that keeps like following up, like putting in like the title of the email, like second email, third email, like why am I paying
Yeah.
people to manage my property? They don't even respond. Um, so I would say that that's really big. You guys bring a lot of technology to the table. Um, with Meld, with being able to see the work orders.
Hmm.
In the past it was kind of like I felt like it was a very opaque relationship where I really don't know what's going on. I'd have to ask for pictures. Sometimes they would even provide pictures. I would question like they're telling me like you need a new water heater, it needs to be replaced. I mean, did they even do it? I mean, do I even
Hmm.
trust that they're telling me the truth? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you guys are on top of your game. You have a really good crew. You're on the younger side, which I think is good because the technology,
Mhm,
older people, um, aren't really there yet, I think, with some of the stuff
mhm,
that you bring to the table, and even when you have a property for rent, like the 3D, view that you have,
mhm. Yeah,
you guys do a really good job, with the listings too.
yeah. And I think it's all the details, because at a certain level, property management is somewhat of a commodity. You go wherever, it's going to be relatively the same. We're collecting your rents, we're making repairs, and we're leasing apartments, right? But what are we doing differently that should, make you want to hire us over the competition? Especially in a place like North Jersey, where there's a significant amount of competition. So we try to think really deeply, being managers ourselves, what could we do and what is the most important thing? And I think, yeah, like I always tell my guys, the communication is the biggest. Like, even if we can answer somebody right now, we'll give them the answer that they're looking for. We have to at least acknowledge we're in receipt of it. This is what we're thinking we're going to do to resolve it. And, we'll touch base at a later time, with the answer, with whatever way we're going on this,
I agree
you
100%.
know?
Like, no response to me is always like, did they even get the email? I have no idea.
Yeah. Exactly, and that exactly with the title company, with the insurance, with the attorney, that's all the same thing that I, have come to expect from myself and my team to my clients is the same thing that I expect with all the people that I work with on a daily basis, like, especially all the vendors, all the people who service the properties, like, if you're not gonna answer, within the same day, especially because a lot of the repairs we do are things that need, addressing almost same day, HVAC, electric, whatever the case might be, especially plumbing, when we have leaks that could turn into major issues if not quickly addressed. Like in Booton, the other day, we had a big repair. We had a commercial tenant. She went on a vacation. She was gone for like 7 or 10 days. Came back. She had a massive water stains and some mold, and she couldn't open her business. She couldn't sell art out of it. Right, it was a big deal for
Right.
her. So we were able to send. We like using ProCare over there and they quickly got back to us with a pricing. I was able to use their scope, without sending other people out there. Just said, hey, to another vendor, taking out the price. This is
Mhm,
the scope of work. What do you think? What can you do it for? Give me a rough idea, just to quickly count them out. And they were
mhm.
pretty fair in what they were offering. So we sent them out, and they got the whole thing done in I think 3 or 4 days from the time that we started, and that was counting the weekend, and that was a 2-day job. Right. So those are the kind of people we look for because that directly relates to the experience that our tenants have and the experience that our owners have, because they're also really good with working inside of Belt. That's the other thing. It's one thing for us to use these technologies, but it's another thing getting our vendors to adapt as well. Because a lot of these people are in the field, they don't want to deal with that.
Yes.
But it just makes everybody's lives much easier and much from a liability standpoint too. You want to see, what's the history of this thing that's been, in case a tenant ever comes 6 months or a year from now and says, you never did this after I requested it X amount of times, so it's about covering ourselves, the landlord, and making sure the tenants get what they're paying for. Because maintenance is also something that should be expected as part of your, lease agreement.
I agree, and, for myself, at one point, you're either a landlord or you're like a real estate investor, so I figured, if you think of a landlord, you might think of, I can't remember that show right now, Don Roper, back the show's from the '70s.
Mhm.
He always would show up with the belt around his waist, and he'd, like, kinda, like, poking around trying to fix stuff. But I think Three's Company, that was it. But being a landlord, um, you could probably, manage myself, I can what can I manage? About 3 properties, you know?
Mhm.
But what made me choose a property manager finally was that I was in a meeting, a pretty important meeting, and the tenant had called me saying she didn't have any heat, and it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And she said, "Oh, I haven't had heat since yesterday, but I didn't want to bother you in the middle of the night." But, it was in the middle of the winter. So I remember thinking to myself at that point in time, I think I had 2 rental properties that I really don't have the time for this. If I have a full time job, you know, depending on where you are in your life and your career, at that point, I decided I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
Okay. Even when I was managing it, I would meet the vendors there, and sometimes I'd wind up working with the vendors. Okay, and like 4 hours later, I'm in the basement on the floor working on the HVAC with them. I'm like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Okay. driving to the plumbing supply store, picking up stuff. Now I'm learning on the way, painting, removing carpet, but, I decided I wanna be a real estate investor, not a landlord.
Mhm.
So that was I think a big step for me at that point. Yes, I'm gonna pay money to have it properly, managed, and they're gonna bring professional, things to this I don't know about, okay? I don't
Mhm.
know all the landlord-tenant laws, really, I don't know. I mean, I could rely upon my attorney, but I wanna take a step back and focus on growth
Mhm.
and not, dealing with the nitty-gritty stuff.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Right now, for the most part, as far as emergencies, we like to use Easy Repair. They're basically, for the most part, US-based call center service who works directly into Property Meld. They're like Property Meld's preferred partner for calls. So they've been pretty good to work with for emergencies specifically because obviously, we're all based here in the same time zone. We're sleeping. But when calls do come in the middle of the night, luckily they are answered. That's one. And if it's a true emergency, an emergency that shouldn't be sent to 911, if that's the case, they'll be directed to not call 911 and
Mhm,
hang up. But if it is an emergency, they'll call, the list of vendors for that specific type of repair, right? Generally, it's going to be like plumbing related. You got to think it's going to be either no heat or like a burst pipe because a burst pipe could cause massive damage and, a lot of water. And, if they don't know if there's no like water shut off in their unit, there's
mhm.
going to be no way for them to do it, right? So that's who we've been using on that side. But it's good to know that we've been doing a pretty good job, but, we could take the criticism. Where do you think we could be better? How could we get better? What are some of the, maybe mistakes we've made in the past that you'd like to see corrected in the future, or maybe things we've already corrected?
I'll be honest with you, I really don't have any complaints right now.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess I could say you can always lower your prices, but
They're gonna think I paid you to say that.
yeah, but, I cut this out, no. But so I think the only downside to some of these things with technology, I think, is if you make it too easy for the tenants to complain, they're gonna keep complaining,
Mhm.
all right?
Yeah.
So, that, could be
Mhm.
if it's too easy for them and they know all I gotta do is go on this website,
Yeah.
whether it's real or not, you guys can vet it out, but
Mhm.
I've had complainers in the past. I had a lady once call, put a complaint in because there was a dead fish on the roof,
Yeah.
okay? Like,
Oh,
little things, okay? They're just gonna keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
yeah. No, I get it. That's good. But luckily, a lot of those things, at least with us, we're gonna be able to screen those out. And I will tell you this, um, 90% of our tenants, we almost never hear from. And then it's the 10% of our tenants that make us earn every dollar
Right.
we get, you know? It's that 10% that you have to be able to manage because if not, they will take every second of your day.
Don't renew those leases. Yeah.
They'll talk to you all day long, even if they might just be lonely, or they might just be making things up, like you said. Not they don't want to financially harm the landlord. They don't wanna annoy you, but they just don't have any in some cases, anything better, to do than to complain about things which, have nothing to do with the work of a landlord, you know what I mean? So it could be difficult navigating that because essentially no ticket can go completely unresponded to. They have to be responded to, closed out, addressed, or given a reason why we're not gonna address them before we officially close it out to protect ourselves and the landlord. Um,
Mm.
but I hear what you're saying as far as that convenience, it could definitely result in more, than there should be. But we try to get quickly accustomed to the tenants, especially when we first meet them. We think the initial introduction, the first impression is the most important thing. That's why we try to meet every tenant in person at least once, right? Especially, right in the beginning
Mhm.
and send them the tenant goodie bags, like the mini Visa coolers with the stuff in it, just to say, like, you're not just a number on a rent roll. You're a person living in here, oftentimes with your family. And, we hope that, the small act of good faith shows you that we value as more than a number.
Mhm.
So we just try to make the human aspect, eliminate things like that, especially that are at least that are done maliciously with ill intent.
Right.
But that's good. That's good to know for sure.
Hmm.
What else do we have going on? We've been investing in some deals together, down in South Jersey.
Yes.
So how has it been working together so far from an investment standpoint? Because that's totally different. Once you're investing in money, in
Right.
deals together, that's totally different. Especially we're on some mortgages together.
Yes.
I always tell my girlfriend I'm more financially tied to Jason than I am to her at the moment.
Yeah.
But,
And my wife, she's like, "Is this comedy guy real? Like, did I?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, he's a real person. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, I get it, but, I mean, we're probably invested in together in, like, at least 9 or 10 properties at the moment, from stuff as small as single families to things as big as, like, as a 15-unit building, down there in South Jersey, and, so far it's been good. There's been a lot of things that have not gone according to plan, and then, also, we've also had a lot of successes as far as pulling out, significant portions of our equity and refinances in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But I think overall, from a collection standpoint and maintenance, for the most part, um, everything's been pretty good so far. And one thing I'm working to get better on is really the investor reporting. Like I sent you the other day, right?
Mhm.
I think I got it. We have it pretty good on the property management side as far as monthly reports that you get. But I think we definitely need to get better in keeping owners slash investors in the loop on a monthly basis and financials, like, the distributions that they get, what's the makeup of that, why they getting that dollar amount, and maybe what they should expect in the near future based on whatever repairs we may have coming up.
I think so, 'cause I think I have access to some spreadsheets that other people don't have access to, so I'll go in there and poke around and look, but some of the other investors, they really probably don't know, so
Mhm.
I think the report is good every month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely working on getting better with that. Buildium is great. Buildium is a main property management software. It's just somewhat limited in some of the reports that it could generate for investors, like something as simple as I could send you automated income and expense reports for the trailing month on the first business day of every month, but I can't go the next step further and have Buildium send you what your percentage is and why equals exactly what you receive. So certain things, I'm trying to reduce the manual stuff as much as possible, not even because we're lazy and we're trying to cut down on the administrative burden, but just because that's how mistakes are made.
Right.
Every time there's something that we're inputting manually, there's a possibility of human error. So as much as can be sent directly from Buildium, so the better. That's why we don't accept even physical rent checks either, because there's no reason to. We have to go in there and make sure it was recorded on the same day, the dollar amount's correct. We got to copy a check, all that stuff. Whereas on Buildium, all the payments are, recorded in real time. We don't have to worry about updating the ledger,
Mhm.
you know?
Yep.
So that's why we like to keep everything in there.
Yeah, for me, with multiple property managers, my issue a little bit is I have multiple, portals I have to go into,
Mhm.
right? So it does get a little confusing for me at times. I have Rentvine is one I use with another, property manager. They switched over from, I think, like, AppFolio or something, and then I have another one. So for me, it's, and these websites update from time to time. You log in, and the links are not where they were the last time. But, yeah, I mean, if everyone's paying rent, um, everything should be fine.
Mhm. Which portal, just curious, out of curiosity, did you like the best, or do you like using the best? How's Renfine?
I like Rentvine.
Mhm.
So I have, like, I have a handful of properties in this one, so I have to select. I go in there and just have to make sure I pick the right property, and
Mhm.
then it switches over the ledger, the work orders, everything would be for that property at that moment.
Mhm.
Um, eh, I don't know if it's really meant to for someone who has a lot of properties, because sometimes I'll get an email sent to me, and I'll click on it, and when I get to the portal, it's defaulting to a different property,
Mhm.
and I have to remind myself I gotta just make sure it's, "Oh, that email is for this property." I gotta go back in there and select the correct property because the work order is not gonna show now.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
but
Yeah.
they're all, they're pretty easy for the most part.
Yeah. The switching costs can be pretty significant. Now, these softwares are somewhat pricey. I mean, the more units you have, it's really on like a per door basis. So the more expensive it gets, but it's not that significant because it's little on the dollar amount, whatever. And you get some transaction fees back. But the biggest thing is it's almost impossible to switch once you're at a certain, volume, because you see the kind of work that goes into onboarding a new property, right? The last one we
Right.
did for you was only 4 units across 2 properties. If I try to do that across an entire we'd have to hire one person to do that and only that for that, 3, 4-month period, so I didn't realize how important it was upfront, what software I was gonna use, because you really become married to that over time, especially all your tenants and HOA owners. They get comfortable with going through building a portal, and that they get text, right? Sign up
Mhm.
for, text messaging. They do their auto payments. They do, so asking them to transition over would be a major would be really tough. So, but the good thing about Buildium, they're constantly upgrading. They put a lot of software updates based on suggestions that we give them and other, property management owners give to them. So they've been really good in that regard. But I think what they really need to do, hopefully in the very near future, is institute their own AI chatbot. Not even that's going to respond directly to the tenants, but is going to give us the draft responses based on our knowledge base or based on the leases that we have stored within Buildium, because
Okay.
that would cut down. There are things out there very similar to that, but it would be an additional thing to add to Buildium. And the more softwares you have, the more it is to integrate, the harder it is to manage multiple software stacks. So that's what I'm really most looking forward to next, because a lot of responses can come right down to, oh, well, as per X, Y, or Z clause in your lease, this is the answer you're looking for, and this is how we're gonna,
Interesting.
respond.
Okay, so you have to upload all this information, and then so if someone had a question as simple as, "When does my lease expire?" This chatbot would be able to
Mhm.
just give you that answer right then and there.
Yes.
Save time, yeah.
And the great thing is all this information is already in Buildium, because Buildium, that's where the leases are sent out of. They're signed electronically, and once they're signed
Right.
electronically, they're uploaded to that tenant's thing, and then the system is able to literally read through the lease in real
Yeah,
time, and it would still go to us prior to being sent out just to verify this looks like it makes sense. But that's the next best thing that Buildium has been talking about, but is yet to release, and I'm kind of questioning it because AI has been out for some time right now. There's plenty of competing services out there that are standalone, which is the only reason I haven't implemented them yet. We do have one thing that we just implemented. It's called Super AI, and that's like a basically phone answering service where it will, take the calls and put it to the respective department based on what it is, and we'll get a really good call summary
hmm,
to see what it was. Reduce because same thing. We're right now continuing to build out the knowledge base. Like, there's a lot of questions that are asked and we have the same answer, and this takes up a lot of time out of our day. So any questions about leasing, the application process, how do I submit a repair ticket? How do I renew my lease? What utilities am I responsible for? Like all these, things that often come up, we're able to it'll automatically refer to the knowledge base, see if I can answer this. If it can't answer this, it'll elevate it to us and tell the person that we'll get right back to them. So, we're looking for more things daily to implement that. Not only obviously so we could be more efficient and manage, more real estate with the same resources, but also because it gives the tenants the best service.
right, you get
You know?
24/7 access, and,
Yeah.
I know from your side of things too, someone calls in for a question that could take a minute, and they could tie up someone on your company for 45 minutes on the phone at
Yeah.
that point, right?
And like, yes, we want personal touch as much as possible to an extent wherever we can. But, Tyler does a lot of leasing and lease renewals. And if he's on the phone with another person calls at the same time, which there's plenty of tenants that could happen all day long, they're not going to be able to get them. So having that AI talk, give those answers we would have already given them ourselves, and then only having to follow up with the people that had to be elevated to us because it wasn't a standard question. It pays itself off immediately, immediately.
Mm,
So we're working through, but those are the kind of things that we have to do to remain competitive, because all the other, at least, management companies who are willing to work with technologies, they're going to be doing it. And the faster they adopt low cost things like that can be done at scale, maybe they're able to price us out of the market at a certain point. And if we're not in a position to, match or beat their pricing and we're providing similar service, we'll end up losing a lot of clients to them, right? So that's just why trying to focus every day on what we can do to make use of what's out there, because that's what everybody else is doing.
well, it sounds like you have a plan in place, and
Yeah, but yeah.